It's working. So we're going to learn something on Purim, excuse me, I've got a bad cough. So let's start with this. There's a curious statement in the writings that of all the Yomim Tovim, after Mashiach comes, only Purim will subsist. Only Purim will continue. Will continue. Everything else will stop. So the question is why? And understand this, that of our Yomim Tovim, Purim is, we don't prohibit work on Purim. There isn't any particular miracle that we're celebrating. There's no Kriyas Yamsuf, there's no Makois, there's no water turning into blood, there's no hailstones on fire, there's no Mon. There's a story. There's a story which has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has a happy ending from Israel, but it really reads just like a story. And furthermore, it's the only piece of sacred literature that Hashem's name isn't mentioned even once. So you would think superficially that it's odd that of all the festivals, the only one after Mashiach that we will keep is Purim. So if for anybody who's got some experience in Hasidus, and everyone at the table has, and I don't know about the people listening on the phone or on the, what do you call that, YouTube, but the reality is that if it's so important that it's going to be a Yom Tov beyond Mashiach and there's no other Yom Tovim beyond Mashiach, you'd be a fool to spend your 70, 80, 120 years as a year not trying to find out why. Not trying to find out what is the power of this Yom Tov. Because let's understand this, we don't, as we've learned this together many times, we don't celebrate a Yom Tov in the same way as the Gentile population celebrates, say, the King's birthday or the Labor Day, or so those days are a day which are attributed a holiday. They're labelled. Everybody agrees it should be a holiday, and that's why it's a holiday. That's not what a Jewish holiday is. A Jewish Yom Tov is a excuse me, a reliving. This should pass, this cough, but I can only try. So, a Jewish Yom Tov is a reliving of the spiritual experience that was particular at that moment, and we relive the Yom Tov because we want to tap into that super energy that is available at that time. So Pesach, we tap into Amunah, and Tishrei we tap into Tshuva. So what is it about Purim where God's name isn't even mentioned? You're allowed to work. What is so incredible about Purim? And who knows anything much about Purim? Sure, we may know the story. I'll summarize the story at the risk of boring everybody. There was King Achashverosh. He was married to Vashti. He was worried that his reign wouldn't last. So after 3 years of reign, he decided to throw a big party. The party lasted for 6 months. when it was finished, he had a second one. That second one, they were all drunk and so on, and he was married to a woman who had one of the best figures in history. That's what we learn. So good a figure that when he was drunk enough, he called for her to come and show all his mates. There was a feast for the men and a feast for the women. I don't know, maybe like from Jews, they had separate lavdal, they had separate. So he sent a messenger to his wife, come and get undressed and show everybody your and you should know she was quite happy. She was quite happy to do it. The problem was that she got a rash, and the rash made her ugly, so she didn't want to come, so she refused to come. So what happened? The king, nobody can say no to the king, let alone his wife, make a fool of him in public. So he calls together the elders, asks them what they should do. They should kill her. So that's what he did. He killed her, and now he has to find another wife. So through Mordecai, who was a politician who was doing very well in the government and so on, he was introduced to and married Mordecai's niece, Esther, who was Jewish, and she became the queen. Then there's a wicked politician called Penny Wong. Called Haman, and this Haman, I don't care. It's not a political sphere, but I can't help myself.
Lot of comments.
And Albanese shouldn't get away with it either. So, I mean, first people since 1948 to vote against us in the United Nations. Who are these people? I mean, anyway, so Haman now wants to. He's an anti-Semite. He wants to kill the Jews. He has a plan, a very clever plan. He says 1 year from now, anyone who kills a Jew can have their property. So of course everybody's becomes very loyal, and plans were made for the eradication of all Jews, men, women, and children. So the Queen Esther is approached by her uncle and is told that she has to save Am Yisrael. She says, "What are you talking about? How can I do that?" He says, "You go into the king and you change his mind." And she said, "Well, I can't go into the king. He hasn't called me in. If you haven't been invited, you can't go in." Nevertheless, Mordecai says, "How do you know that this isn't why you were created?" She goes in. The king asks her what she wants. She says she wants to have a party. She has a party of three. Her, King Achashverosh, and Haman. And then after that, she has a second party, the three of them again. At the second party, in the meantime, between the two parties, she discloses to her husband that, first of all, that she's Jewish, and second of all, that Haman wants to kill all the Jews. That means Haman wants to kill her, and Achashverosh asks her what she wants, and as a result, Haman is hanged on the gallows, and Am Yisrael goes free. That's the story.
Yeah.
And there's no mention of God. There's no major miracles. It's just everyday life, with Baruch Hashem some dangers, but Baruch Hashem a happy ending. So what's the big deal? That's the question. So we'll explore that together tonight. We'll start with a mimer, which Tony, you heard some of. which I learned with my Chavrusa, with Rabbi Leda, I should say relearned. And I think we did this mimer in the Shia some 22 years ago. So, but I didn't remember it well enough to do it without relearning it. So I'll just try and summarize it for you. The opening words are very important, so I'll just read them even in Hebrew. The mimer, the Rebbe quotes a pasuk from Megillah Esther. It says this: Al kein koru liyomim ha'elu, therefore these days were called Purim, al shem hapur, because of the pur, the lottery. Purim means a lottery, a lot. A goyrel. A goyrel means like this: you take two boxes, two hats, you put one set of information in one hat, one set of information in the other hat, you draw out one from each, and that becomes the answer. So what was the lottery here? The lottery at the lowest level, in the practical level that we're talking about, is that Haman wanted to eradicate Am Yisrael, as we've heard, and to do that, he wanted to have an auspicious time to do it in. He was sufficiently spiritually canny to know that that was important. So to get that date, he put in all the days of the month here in this box and all the months of the year in that box, and he put his finger in, took out, and he got the date. And that date was going to be the date for the annihilation of all of Am Yisrael. And because it wasn't successful, the holiday that we celebrate to say thank you to Hashem for sparing us, and which we do in the greatest joy possible, because Purim is a time that we celebrate in the most joy we can, even to drinking alcohol ad velo yoda, which means until you don't know the difference between Mordechai and cursed is Haman, and Baruch and blessed is Mordechai. So that we do that at such a joyful level that let me just make sure that I'm getting the order of this right. Yeah, that we call it by the festival of Purim. Now, we start off with a hint straight away. The Rebbe goes into this immediately in the thing, and he says this. He says that the most holy day in the year that we keep according to the mitzvahs of not working, not eating, not working, is Yom Kippur, where we don't even eat or drink. And Yom Kippur is called Yom Kippur. What does that mean? The day that is like Purim. So Yom HaKippurim is the day that is like Purim. Now, the Rebbe points this out. He doesn't use this example, but I'll use it because we're all older. If we're all older, then you can. My grandchildren wouldn't know who I'm talking about. But if you wanted to say that a woman was beautiful, if you want, let's suppose there's a beautiful movie star, you might say that she's as beautiful, nearly or as beautiful as Marilyn Monroe. Let's say. Now we've heard of Marilyn Monroe.
You got a picture of you.
Anne loves painting it. Yeah. Who is more beautiful, the person that you're talking about or Marilyn Monroe? Obviously Marilyn Monroe, because you're saying she's like Marilyn Monroe. So who's the more important one? Marilyn Monroe. If you say Yom HaKippurim, the day that is like Purim, that's like saying that Purim is even more important than Yom Kippur. How can it be more important than Yom Kippur, which is apparently the holiest day of the year? So where the Rebbe goes, I'll just summarize everything in 1 minute, and then we'll go back and analyze some of the parts of it. But what the Rebbe is saying is, why is it so incredibly important that it eclipses all the other Yomim Tovim, and God's name isn't even mentioned, and it's all apparently normal and hidden and no miracles and no anything? Because you and I, as Jews, are being alerted to the fact that to have a successful Jewish life, you have to be aware of two distinct realities. We have a Gashmias reality, we have a physical reality where we go to work and pay our bills and pay our taxes, put out the garbage, deal with all the problems, deal with the idiots who drive out and nearly hit you in the street, and you're walking to synagogue to try and join a minyan, and you've got some 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid on an electrical bike or scooter that's driving at 50 miles an hour down the road. I mean, on the footpath. And I'm stupid enough to have earphones in my, I don't hear him. So that's one level of our life. But a Jew's level of life has, at the same time, the paradox is that we have a whole spiritual dimension that we tap into, depending on who we are and what level of spirituality you've achieved, or what level of spirituality you want to achieve. That there is a whole different dimension where we tap into and the rest of creation doesn't. Animals don't, trees don't, stones don't, non-Jews don't. Non-Jews, I'm not suggesting that they don't have access to spirituality. Of course they do. I'm not claiming any specific superiority for Jews. I'm saying that Jews have a different level to their neshama, the Halek Eloka Mimal, as we keep saying, a part of God's consciousness itself. And as such, it is part of our daily DNA that we have a fallback position to our God. And we do. I mean, I can remember when Anne and I lived in the previous house, we had a next door neighbor. I remember she was putting out a washing, Jewish woman, older woman, she was putting out a washing. And she was walking back into the house, and I was in the garden with one of the children doing something, I can't remember what. And she says, "It's not going to rain." I said, "How do you know?" She said, "I did a deal with God." And that's how a Jew thinks. Yeah. That's how a Jew thinks. A Jew has this parallel universe, a parallel consciousness, which is a spiritual consciousness. And what the Rebbe is going to explain, and what our takeaway from Purim needs to be, is a reminder that the more normal life looks, the more physical cause and effect is apparent, the more mundane life is, the greater is your duty to yourself and your family and the environment and the world, to understand that you've got to look in that normal physical day-to-day environment and see literally the glory of God and your relationship with God, which is available to every Jew on tap. That's a huge call. That's a huge ask and a huge call. And the saddest thing is that, I mean, Ronan and I were talking about secular Jews before in Israel. There's so many Jews who've never heard of any of this. They have no idea what we're talking about at the moment. And it's just a fundamental lack of education. It's like not, I'll give you an example. You have in your back garden a vein of gold in the rock worth billions. You know it's there, you don't know it's there. How do you know it's there? You start digging. Now, digging is what an educator does with somebody else. He trains him to look for levels of truth. The problem that most secular Jews have is not that they don't have the neshama, not that they don't have the tools, not that they don't have the ability to share in this wonderful excitement, but they don't know how. They've never heard of it. And just as God's name's not mentioned in the whole Megillah from beginning to end, God's not mentioned in their life from beginning to end. On the other hand, it is so deep and powerful a set of miracles, as we'll see in a minute, that it's the only set of miracles that's going to subsist after Mashiach comes. So, what is the dynamic of this? So, I'm going to try. I'll just summarize the Maimah quickly because I want to get on to a couple of other sikhs from the Rebbe. But the Maimah basically says this. It questions why the holiday is called Purim, and the Rebbe explains that it is because of the very fact that this word pur, this word goyrel, this lottery, is at the key to understanding this depth that a Jew has with his God, which is disguised in daily life so that it's unnoticeable. And it comes from this. Now, I'm going to explain something that really needs, I just need to explain this. The Maimah talks about Haman intending to reach certain spiritual levels. Now, it would be a mistake to think that Haman was so sophisticated a spiritualist that he understood these things in the specific degrees that the Rebbe is going to explain. What is a much better way of understanding it is that Haman was a representative of Klippa, of evil, of bad, of narcissism, of selfishness, and with that came a whole lot of, energies to access higher and higher levels of gratification for his evil. So,
They say he was descendant of Amalek.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There are many Balei Kabbalah who said that Hitler was
Exactly.
Okay, so when we say that Yom HaKippurim is the day like Purim, in what way is it like it? We know that Yom Kippur is the day of tshuva, par excellence. It's the day when the energy of tshuva shines most brightly. A Jew has an ability to access that energy by doing tshuva. And by doing tshuva, he cleanses his neshama and his guf and his being of the accumulated impediments of daily living and going wrong. And on Yom Kippur, that is a conscious working goal for the whole day. With Purim, that is this because Yom HaKippurim is the day that's like Purim. On Purim, there is also the energy of tshuva, but it's driven from a much more powerful power base, and that's the strange thing about how come this is such a deeply important festival when on the surface it doesn't look like it. That the tshuva on Yom Kippur, on on Yom Kippur is one of work. The tshuva on Purim comes from two places, two parts to this energy. One is Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, and one is joy, happiness. And those two energies combined eclipse any other spiritual energy in the universe. So when a Jew is relating to his God, essence to essence, and is totally happy with his lot and totally happy with his relationship with his God, he is Superman, Superman. And all of this is hidden. It's hidden in you and it's hidden in me. And to be honest with you, it takes many shiurim on Purim to convince us, even if you're frum, even if you've been keeping, even if you keep some parts of Torah, even if you've learned some Chassidus, to have this level of energy ad velo yoda, without any limit whatsoever, that's very difficult to achieve. You know why? Because we stop ourselves. We balk. We are our own worst enemy in this. Why is God's name not mentioned? Because you're not finding it. And is it difficult to find? It isn't difficult to find, because if it were difficult to find, we wouldn't have the yontif. So the energy for Purim comes from Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. What's self-sacrifice mean? It means, here is my physical life, God. I want all the normal things that everybody else wants. I want a car. I want enough to eat. I want to be able to pay my bills and pay my taxes, fix my kids' teeth, not have problems with my children, not have problems with my health. I want all of that, please. But for us, when we're in full flight, when we're in real strength, that's secondary. Doesn't seem it on a daily basis, just the way God's name's not mentioned anywhere. But in full flight, our first perspective is Mesiras Nefesh, that at the end of the day, we do not count compared and in relation to our relationship with our God. Our relationship with our God trumps everything else in our life. Not everybody can access that. And you should know that all the Rebbeim in Chabad have explained over and over again, it's a matter of practice. Getting there is a matter of practice. It's not that it's not available. It's a matter of practice. And it's a matter of believing that it's there. Not everybody realizes. One of the things that the Rebbe, I can't tell you how much he kept stressing this to everybody in dollars, on every farbrengen, on every interrelation, in seekers, in Maimorim, over and over and over again. He said, he kept telling us, you have no idea what your potential is. The extent to which we use our potential is unbelievably small. 1%, 1.5%. You're a really holy Jew, 5%. But there's 95% there. And all you got to do is pick it up. How do you pick it up? Through Mesiras Nefesh and Simcha. That's the pathway. So now, I'll just deal with the moment quickly because I mentioned it, but it's not the end of the road in the Shia. Haman understood this. When I say he understood, I'm talking about his spiritual forces. He understood that he can't daven to Hashem to destroy Am Yisrael. Why? Because Am Yisrael is the Am Segula. We had Matan Torah. We were given the Torah. We were given a mission. Our mission was to bring heaven down to earth and to elevate earth into heaven. Gashmius into Ruchnius and Ruchnius into Gashmius. And to do that as an Segula, Hashem promised us that we will Am Yisrael Chai, that we will survive everything. Don't worry, we were told. It's going to hurt a lot of the time. You're going to have difficulties. The snare, the burning bush, is the classic example of this. The Midrash explains that the snare was Am Yisrael, and that the snare was on fire, but it wasn't consumed. What does that mean? Am Yisrael is going to burn through the generations, but they won't be consumed. Why are they going to burn? That's a whole different set of shirim, and that we go now to pain and evil and all of those things. And Moshe Rabbeinu, I've told this many times in the shir, Hashem told him to look into the bush, and he refused and he ran away. And when Hashem, then there's a dialogue reported in the Midrash that Hashem, because this is Am Yisrael. You've got to understand, we talk to God. We have dialogues with God. So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, why aren't you looking in the snare? And Moshe, and he said, if you look in the snare, you'll see why it's burning, but why it's not consumed. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't want to look you want me to fight evil, right? You want me to be the captain of the brigade of people that are going to be confronted with evil and fight it and turn it into good. I can't fight something I understand. I have to hate evil if you want me to fight it. I don't want to understand it. I don't want to look in your burning bush. Don't have a burning bush. You can do anything you like. Don't have a burning bush. That's a different set of shirim, and we can't go there now. But at the moment, the issue is that Am Yisrael have a capacity to join their consciousness with Hashem, with their consciousness of Hashem, essence to essence, and the way to do this is through the tshuva of Yom Kippur, but as it is in Purim. Not that Purim is less important. Purim is more important, because Yom HaKippurim is the day that is like Purim. So therefore Purim is more important. And it says, the Rebbe explains in one of the paragraphs that the tshuva has to come lifnei Hashem, in front of God. So what does the word in front of God mean? The common way you would understand that is that you bring it to God's presence. Says the Rebbe, no, that's not right. You have to read this, that the tshuva is brought to a level that's above godliness. Now, what does that mean, above godliness? So let's go through that quickly. What Haman wanted to do, he knew that he can't go to God and say, wipe out these people, because God's not going to agree. That's the story of the snare and Am Yisrael High. And so, how can he get to him? So there are various levels in a relationship, and the same levels are in the relationship that we have with our God. So let's take as an example of family, an ordinary, normal, functioning family, nothing special. Husband, wife, 2-3 kids, they live in a house, they have a set of rules. I use this marshal often. They live in a house, they have a set of rules, and the kids have got to conform to that set of rules. And they do, each one differently. You've got, out of the 4 children, there's one who's 10 out of 10, there's one who's 6 out of 10, there's one 3 out of 10, and one's a really big problem to himself, and he's not a happy kid, and he's only 1 out of 10. So it says that Achashverosh is really code for God, and that there's plenty of the Megillah which we read, which when Achashverosh's name is mentioned, we're talking about a level of Hashem, a level of godliness. So that is a level of godliness which has reward and punishment. In other words, there's a set of rules to living our lives. Jews have to behave in a certain way. If they behave in a certain way, they're blessed. If they're not behaved in a certain way, they're punished. Although we have to understand what punishment means. It's not beating somebody up to cause them pain. It's giving them opportunities for further growth. But then there's a level higher than that. So let me give you an example. Let's go back to this family. Got these 4 kids, and on a daily basis, they get the relationship with their father and mother is a relationship which is consequent on their behavior. If he's a 10 out of 10, he's going to be favored with smiles and kisses and presents. If he's only 6 out of 10, he's going to spend some time being punished. If he's only 3 out of 10, he's going to spend more time being punished. 1 out of 10, he's going to be threatened to be thrown out of the house, right? But now let's say that child number 1 is a girl, and it's her wedding. And and the family go to the wedding, and they take her through under the chuppah, and they're married, and they start dancing. And you know, for anyone that's married off a child, they're dancing. They have a l'chaim or 3 or 5, and they're dancing like there's and they're dancing with all their children. And when they're dancing with all their children, there's no difference between number 10 and number 6 and number 4 and number 1. Who cares whether he made his bed yesterday? At the moment, they're dancing at their child's wedding, and they're dancing with their children. And that's wonderful. But it's still measured. It's just that you've forgotten the measurement. For the time being, you've let that measurement go. But now say that they come home and one of the kids smokes in bed and there's a fire. And they're all half shikha and there's a fire, and suddenly the parents wake up and they see that the kids are all fast asleep and there's a fire. Now I want to ask you, when the parents run to get the kids out of the bedroom and take them out to get them to safety outside, there's no difference. It's not even a difference like there was at the wedding, where this one isn't the best one and this one, but they're dancing together because all's forgiven at a wedding. Now there is no difference. It's essence to essence. So that's the level that Haman wanted to reach when he ran the goyrel. What does a goyrel mean? A goyrel means that you abdicate your choices to a higher authority, or to a random authority, or to a God's authority, or you can't make up your mind what you want to do, so you're prepared to abdicate the choice to some other factor. So when he did that, spiritually, whether he did this consciously or not is a different thing. The spiritual motivation of his wanting to do that is that he wanted to reach a level in godliness which was above that level where they were just dancing with their children, the parents are just dancing with their children. He wants to be at a level above that, essence to essence, like the level where Hashem is saving or his parent is saving the child. And that's the level that he wanted to get to, because at that level he has a chance. At the lower level where Hashem is measuring reward and punishment, he has no chance, because who's Hashem chosen? Hashem's chosen Am Yisrael. We're the Am Segula. So he has no chance to eradicate us. We have a promise in Torah that we will outlive every host nation. And we have. We're a total miracle. Don't forget, you got to remember, this needs constant reminder. Who was the first Jew? Who was born the first Jew? Yitzhak, right? He was born from a father who was 100 to a mother who was 90. She stopped having her cycles 50 years earlier. And so he was a miraculous birth. That's the first Jew. That is the first Jew to be born. Avraham Avinu was the first Jew, but Yitzhak was the first Jew to be born a Jew. And the first Jew is born under miraculous conditions. We are promised by Hashem that we will, Am Yisrael Chai, we will survive miraculously, despite everything. However, it's going to be difficult. Now, the question is, how difficult? And the question is, do you and I have any control over how difficult? I want to tell you, it's really a massive question, because it's a question which, at the end of the day, goes to the core of your and my life if you've got any sense. If you've got any sense at all, you're not going to spend your life worrying about what's in the paper today and whether the garbage tin's got one lid or two lids, or whatever it is that is causing you anxiety at the moment. When you examine it, it's trivia. It's all trivia compared to the real big question. What's the real big question? The real big question is what sort of a life can I live? And do I have any influence on the Hashgacha Pratis that's coming to me? Now, we've learned over and over again that Hashgacha Pratis means that which happens to you, you have no control over. What do you have, what do you have free choice on how you react to it? So we know that you can't expect to control what happens to you, but you can not only expect, but you can triumph and achieve personal greatness in how you react to it. But it goes deeper than that, because if one's heart and soul and essence is essence to essence with his God, all of these lower levels of cause and effect, of push and pull, they mean nothing. The Talmud asks a very, very deep question. When you just so that you understand what we're talking about, when you shecht an animal, that you have to use a certain kind of knife that has to be certain level of sharpness, and you have to cut through the windpipe in a certain place through the front of the neck, and that has to be. You can't do that in a sawing motion. You can't. It has to be a specific kind of cut which kills the animal instantly and painlessly. Right? Now, Gemara asks this, and if you do it, then it's kosher. And if you do it from the back, it's not kosher. So the Talmud says, do me a favor. Are you seriously telling me that it matters to God, who created the heavens and the earth and the universe and the billions of galaxies and all the gases and all the molecules and all the atoms, does he really care whether it's from the front or the back? Is it a good question? How can he care? So the answer is yes or no. At one level, of course he doesn't care. At one level, he's beyond and above humanity, life, everything. He's the creator and the runner and the orchestrator and the driver of the whole universe and everything in it. But at another level, he chooses to care. That's why he's given us a set of rules and expects us to keep those rules. And therefore, when we keep the rules, there's going to be a positive reaction. And when we don't keep the rules, there's going to be a negative reaction. So the answer is that at some level, he does care. At most levels, at the highest levels, of course he doesn't care. At the highest level, it's like the child who's in the burning house. Who cares about rules? But at the lower level, on daily living, coming down to breakfast, the child's got to come down to breakfast and make his bed, if that's your house rules. Or help with the breakfast, or help with the washing up, or whatever it is, packing the lunches. Because that's a part of normal living. And that's the level that he wanted to get to. But he didn't. Why? Because there's a level higher than that. There's a level higher than that which really needs weeks to explain in this mimer in itself, but I'll just give it to you. But Kitzur, the level higher than that is that ultimately Hashem has made the choice of Am Yisrael. And that's why Am Yisrael high. Now, are you entitled because of that to strut around the streets and say Jews are better than everybody else? That's ridiculous. But by the same token, it has to be understood that Hamas can never be successful against us. And Hezbollah can never be successful against us. They can inflict pain. But at the end of the day, Am Yisrael high. We are a miraculous nation. And the way we energize that miraculousness is this Purim dichotomy. That on one level, we have ordinary Gashmias, Hamas, Hezbollah, who's got the bigger weapons, who can get more money out of the United States. Is Trump upset with Zelensky or not upset with Zelensky? And if he's pro Bibi, we'll have more money, and if he's not pro, that's all very important. Not suggesting not, but at the end of the day, that's not why Am Yisrael high. Am Yisrael high because we are Yidden with a common consciousness to Hashem, and you've got to find it for yourself. You've got to find it for yourself because you have a completely different life. And the whole point about Purim is that Haman dies and fails, and Esther succeeds, and Mordecai succeeds. What succeeded? Wealth? No. Power? No. Beauty? No. We'll see in a minute if we get time. We probably won't. That Esther fasted for 3 days. And she had to go in and have intercourse with the king who hadn't called for her for a month. So she doesn't feel particularly wanted at the moment. So how do you improve that? You go to the hairdresser, you go whatever they do. Nails is very important at the moment, amongst my women anyway. Toenails and for my women the shaitels that they do, they have to get them redone. Whatever it is, that's what you think she should do. What does she do? She fasts for 3 days. You fast for 3 days, you look sick, you feel sick, you have halitosis. That's how she's got to go into the king. But that's how she goes into the king and wins. Why? Because at the end of the day, we are plugged in at a different level. So just l'chaim l'chaim. As usual, we've run out of time, but I just want to go through. I didn't get a chance to fully explain that mimer, but I think some of the bones of it are there. But I do want to do 2 other sikkahs where very bekitzer, because it's absolutely necessary to understand it together with what we've been learning. The first one is this, that we have a very, very puzzling Gemara. And the Gemara in Megillah says this. It says, at the end of the day, why should the Jews have had this fright? What did they do? What was so terrible that they should be given the prospect of being annihilated with their wives, with their children, with their parents, with their uncles, with everybody dead? What? What did they do to deserve that? And Hashem is all fair, all good, all loving, and we're His children. So what did Am Yisrael do? So you know what the Talmud answers? Talmud answers that they enjoyed the feast of Achashverosh. That's what it says. Yeah. What sort of an answer is that? And so then you get people who try and justify it. So there were commentators that said, they ate non-kosher. Yeah. They drank the treif wine.
Ahasuerus was wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol.
Ahasuerus was wearing the clothes of the Kohen Gadol, and the kalim from the Beis Hamikdash were being used. So but it's been pointed out, and the Rebbe screams this in the Fabringen. He says, but you've got it wrong. Achashverosh was so beneficent in these that he said that everybody can have whatever they want. So the Jews had glut kosher food. The Jews drank the best kosher wine in the world. The Jews didn't do anything that was wrong. So how can you say that this punishment was because they enjoyed the feast so much? So the Rebbe, I'll say this very bekitzer. The Rebbe explains that what does it mean that they enjoyed it? It means that they thought that Albanese and Penny Wong were more important than God. They thought that if they sucked up to the current political framework and licked their boots, that they would be benefited to the exclusion of any danger that was coming to them, and that would safeguard them against any such danger. And the fact that they were prepared to trade what they trusted in. Now, you've got to understand these are levels already, because first of all, you've got to be at a level where you trust your God. There are a lot of you who don't know what we're talking about. They would if they learned, but they don't. So they have a feeling in their gut, they have a feeling in their heart and soul, but they can't articulate it. But these are people who already can articulate it. But now, with that level of trust, they've got the chance to go to Washington and sit with Trump and and eat with him. And he's going to invite him to his table, and there'll be photographers there, and it'll go out on YouTube, and it'll go out on the news, and there you'll be sitting next to Donald Trump with his shaking his hand, and now your life's complete. You've got to know, says the Rebbe, that's not the way we complete our lives. You have to sit next to Trump if you're invited, because you have to sit. You can't not obey the laws of the land. You can't be an idiot. You can't get yourself imprisoned or killed, or you have to behave like a mensch. But to trust Donald Trump and not your God, or Albanese, or Penny Wong. And by the way, I'm a big Trump fan. We've talked about, I don't know, in 37 years of giving this shir, I've never mentioned politics, I don't think, but it's come up tonight because this is a political event on Thursday night, Friday.
Well, Mr. Turnbull's not happy with it.
Anyway, so now, finally, there's another secret so I just wanted you to hear that this concept of why they enjoyed the feast is really the same thing again. We're talking about our relationship with our God, and we're talking about it in the Megillah, in the whole story, where there's no apparent relationship. God's name's not mentioned, no miracles, no wonders, no. But without understanding this, you wouldn't understand the whole story from beginning to end, because the whole story from beginning to end is amazing Hashgacha Pratis, unfolding one from the other. No single one of which is particularly miraculous, but that's your and my life. That's exactly your and my life, that there is a series of consequences, no one of which is would you scream from the rooftops. On the other hand, if you don't put them together and understand what they are doing in your life, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. I don't mean that critically. I mean, it's sad. It's sad that a Jew doesn't find this in his life. So finally, there's this sikha, which sums it all up. You know, we have a saying in Torah, everybody's heard it, that Am Yisrael to the nations is like a lamb amongst 70 wolves. Everybody's heard that. What does it mean? A lamb amongst 70 wolves. On its own, left to nature, how long do you reckon the lamb would last with 70 wolves? So the answer is not 5 minutes, right?
1 second.
So why does the lamb survive? Because the lamb has a shepherd, and that shepherd is making sure that the 70 wolves don't kill him, don't eat him up. When we are told that Am Yisrael is a lamb amongst 70 wolves, explains the Rebbe, that is code for your and my understanding that we have a shepherd. And if our connection is to our shepherd, nothing's going to happen to us. We are going to be Am Yisrael high. But if you want to choose to trade in leaning on the shepherd for nature, Penny Wong is saying, around the corner, there's a fantastic view. Come and look at the fantastic view. This is the view of a two-state solution. This is a view of every man having his own place. This is justice, because they need, and you need, and they need, and we are going to provide that. And she's very solemn and very logical and very, very intelligent and very... You want to leave your shepherd and join that, then you're going to have the result that will bring. That's the problem. So this whole Megillah that you're going to listen to on Thursday night and Friday, by the way, there's an obligation to hear Megillah twice.
Yep.
There's an obligation to give Shalach Monos, there's an obligation to fast on Tainus Esther, there's an obligation to give tzedakah. But the whole thrust of Purim is to understand that we're talking about two parallel universes. That one is the one that reads like the story with a beginning and a middle and an end and nothing remarkable. That's our daily life. But you've got to then take that daily life in black and white and add color to it, and add substance to it, and add reality to it. And that color and the substance and the reality is our relationship with our God. And that's what the real story of Purim is about. And how's it fixed? It's not fixed by politics. And Esther doesn't win with Mordecai by on the contrary, Haman should have won. He gave them 10,000 silver coins. You know what that, somebody told me that it's the equivalent of $100 million. He was prepared to give Achashverosh $100 million to eradicate the Jews. Achashverosh said, good deal. Why not? At that time, by the way, he didn't know that Esther was Jewish. Mm. So that's what Purim is, guys. And Purim is recognizing that we have this separate level and being attuned to it and having consciousness-raising sessions for it. So l'chaim. Before anyone goes, can I ask you to pass?
Yeah, sure.
Those? I think, Tony, it's courtesy of you, isn't it?